What happens when an ordinary woman is pushed too far? When grief, injustice, and corruption collide, the result isn't surrender, it's fire. This is the story of Elena Ramirez, a widow who dared to rise against an empire. A story of betrayal, courage, and ultimate justice. Stay with me until the end, because you won't believe how it all unfolds. Before we dive in, beautiful souls, tell me in the comments, what does justice mean to you? Is it punishment, or is it truth? New York City. A place where dreams are born, and where they are destroyed just as quickly. Beneath the glowing lights and towering skyscrapers, corruption weaves its quiet web, trapping the powerless and protecting the powerful. And in the middle of it all, stands Elena Ramirez. A mother. A widow. A woman who had already lost too much. But what Elena didn't know that night was that she was about to lose everything. Her husband, Luis Ramirez, had been a construction foreman for one of Kane Global's major projects. He believed in hard work, in fairness, in building something honest in a city that rarely gave people like him a chance. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Luis didn't come home. Instead, Elena received a phone call that would shatter her world, an accident at the Kane site. A scaffolding collapse. That's what they called it. An accident. But those who were there whispered something darker. Corners cut. Safety ignored. A billionaire rushing deadlines at the expense of human lives. Elena arrived at the hospital in time to hold his hand, but not in time to save him. Luis whispered only one word before his chest fell still. Files. Files? What files? She didn't know then. All she knew was the love of her life was gone. And worse, Kane Global's lawyers arrived before she even left the hospital bed. Cold suits. Cold eyes. They told her bluntly, Luis had signed liability waivers. Kane bore no responsibility. Case closed. No justice. No compensation. Nothing. Just silence. Now Elena was alone, with 2 children to feed. Isabella, just 10 years old, wise beyond her years, clutching her sketchbook. And Mateo, only 7, asking every night when Papa was coming back. They didn't understand why Mom cried into her pillow when she thought they were asleep. And when the eviction notice came, Elena packed what little they had into boxes, and drove to a rundown motel on the edge of Queens. It smelled of mildew. The ceiling leaked. And the neighbors, well, you didn't ask questions. That's where Elena's story begins. At rock bottom. Meanwhile, Victor Kane, the billionaire developer, smiled on TV screens. He called himself a visionary. A man who transformed neighborhoods. But to those who worked under him, he was a tyrant. Ruthless. Arrogant. The kind of man who thought rules were for everyone else. And Kane's message was clear. Elena Ramirez? Just another disposable widow. Another casualty of progress. Forgotten. But Victor Kane had made one mistake. He underestimated her. Beautiful souls, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments. Because no matter where you are, injustice like this, it burns the same. And if your blood is already boiling, stay with me. Because Elena's fight is only just beginning. And what she uncovers next, it will shock you. Late one night, in that motel room, Elena opened a battered laptop that once belonged to Luis. The screen flickered, and for a moment, she almost closed it. But curiosity, grief, and something else, call it fate, made her type in the password she guessed. Their wedding date. The desktop loaded. And there, in a folder buried deep inside, she saw a single word that stopped her heart: evidence. But what was inside? And why had Luis whispered about files before he died? Elena's world was about to change forever. But for now, all she could do was cry herself to sleep. Because tomorrow, the fight for her children's future would begin. Remember this moment. Because this is the last time Elena Ramirez would ever be powerless. She just didn't know it yet. The glow of a laptop screen in a dark motel room. Rain pelts against the window. Elena sits on the edge of the bed, her children asleep beside her. Elena's fingers trembled as she hovered over the folder Luis had left behind. Evidence. The word itself felt heavy, dangerous. She hesitated, because sometimes, the truth is harder to face than the lie. But something inside her whispered, "Look." And so she clicked. The folder opens. Rows of encrypted files. Spreadsheets, PDFs, photographs. Complex data Elena doesn't understand. What she found wasn't simple. It wasn't neat. It was a storm of numbers, receipts, and documents she couldn't begin to decipher. Construction contracts with odd payments. Safety inspections marked cleared despite missing signatures. Memos about off-the-books projects. And buried in it all, photographs of broken equipment, injured workers, and emails with Kane's name at the top. It was too much. Her chest tightened. She whispered to herself, "Luis, what were you trying to tell me?" She has a flashback, Luis at the dinner table months before, stress in his eyes. She remembered how he used to rub his temples at night. How he once said, "These men, Elena, they don't care if we live or die. One day, they'll push too far." Now she understood. He hadn't just been foreman. He had been collecting evidence. Risking his life to expose something bigger. And maybe his death wasn't an accident after all. Elena closes the laptop quickly, fear in her eyes. She hears footsteps outside the motel door. Elena's heart raced. Paranoia crept in. Were they watching her already? Was Kane's shadow stretching even here? She pressed the laptop shut, pulled her children close, and whispered to herself, "Tomorrow. I'll figure this out tomorrow." But fate didn't wait for tomorrow. Fate knocked on her door that very night. A knock. Elena freezes. She peers through the peephole, a man in his 40s, worn coat, carrying a satchel. Not a thug, not police. Someone else. His name was Jordan Lee, a former investigative journalist. A man whose career had been destroyed after he dared to publish the truth about Victor Kane years earlier. He had been following Kane ever since. And now, he was following her. "Mrs. Ramirez, my name is Jordan Lee. I knew your husband. He came to me months ago. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should find you." Elena's voice cracked. "You knew Luis?" Jordan nodded. "He was scared, Elena. But he was brave. He gave me copies of files. Told me his wife would understand what to do if he couldn't finish." Elena lets him in cautiously. He places his satchel on the table, pulling out papers identical to the ones on Luis's laptop. Elena's world tilted. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't alone. Luis had trusted her with more than grief. He had trusted her with a mission. Hey, beautiful souls. Let me pause right here. If you were Elena, would you open that door? Would you trust a stranger who says he knew your late husband? Drop a yes or no in the comments. I want to know how cautious you'd be. Jordan explains Kane's corruption, money laundering, bribes to inspectors, politicians in his pocket. Elena struggles to process. Kane controls everything, the courts, the police, the media. But he doesn't know what Luis left behind. Together, we can bring him down. Elena whispered, "Why me?" Jordan, "Because you're the one thing Kane won't see coming. A widow. A mother. He'll underestimate you. That's your strength." For the first time since Luis's death, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Small. Fragile. But real. Next day, Elena meets Tony, a former Kane global worker injured in a workplace accident. He walks with a limp, bitterness in his eyes. Tony had once been loyal to Kane. But Kane abandoned him after his accident, left him broke, discarded. At first, he wanted nothing to do with Elena's crusade. "You'll get yourself killed," he spat. But when Elena showed him one photograph from Luis's files, a photo of Tony lying injured while Kane's executive stepped over him, Tony's fists clenched. And for the first time, he agreed to help. Because pain unites. And betrayal? Betrayal fuels revenge. But Kane's empire had ears everywhere. And soon, word reached his office that the Ramirez widow wasn't staying quiet. Victor Kane leaned back in his leather chair, smirked, and said one chilling sentence to his men. "If she wants to play hero, let's remind her who runs this city." Cut to Elena's motel. A brick smashes her window in the middle of the night. A note attached, "Stop digging." Elena screamed, pulling her children to the floor as glass scattered across the bed. Her heart pounded, rage and fear clashing inside her. She looked at her daughter's wide, terrified eyes. At her son clutching her arm. And in that moment, she swore she would never stop. Because this wasn't just about Luis anymore. This was about their future. Elena Ramirez was no longer just a grieving widow. She was the keeper of Kane's darkest secrets. And the first sparks of her revolution had begun to glow. But Kane wasn't afraid yet. Not yet. And when he struck back, his cruelty would test Elena in ways she couldn't imagine. Early morning in the motel. Elena stands before a cracked mirror, tying her hair back. Her eyes are no longer just tired, they burn with resolve. Elena Ramirez had made her choice. She would not run. She would not hide. If Victor Kane wanted her silent, he had underestimated the wrong woman. Because now, she was ready to fight back. Jordan guiding Elena through Luis's files. Screens glowing with spreadsheets, photographs, encrypted emails. Tony marking names of corrupt supervisors. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. A paper trail of bribes to city inspectors. Offshore accounts tied to Kane's shell companies. And most damning of all, emails ordering construction shortcuts that had cost workers their lives. Luis hadn't died for nothing. He had left her the weapon to bring Kane down. Jordan teaches Elena how to use secure emails, encrypted messengers. They leak a small batch of documents to a mid-level news blog. At first, it was small. A whisper in the dark. A blog post accusing Kane Global of fraud. Few people noticed. But Kane noticed. And that was the point. Cut to Kane's office. His jaw tightens as he slams the newspaper onto his desk. Kane's voice, dripping venom. "Find out who's behind this. And when you do, make them regret breathing." Elena, Jordan, and Tony in the motel. They laugh nervously as the story gains tiny traction online. For the first time, Elena felt something strange. Confidence. Every click, every share of that story was proof. Kane wasn't untouchable. The widow no one believed in was forcing cracks into the empire. Beautiful souls, let me ask you something. If you were up against a billionaire who had taken everything from you, would you risk it all to fight back? Or would you protect your family by staying quiet? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm curious how brave you'd be in Elena's shoes. Elena confronts Kane publicly for the first time. She sneaks into a community meeting where Kane is announcing a new luxury project. Cameras flash. Reporters scribble notes. She stood up in the crowd. Her voice shook at first, but then it grew stronger. "Victor Kane, how many more fathers have to die for your greed? How many more families do you destroy before someone stops you?" The room froze. Cameras turned. For the first time, Kane looked unsettled. But only for a moment. Then he smiled. A predator's smile. And he leaned into the microphone. "Security. Remove her." The cameras rolled as Elena was dragged out, kicking, shouting Luis's name. And though the headlines mocked her the next morning as a hysterical widow, the footage spread online like wildfire. The world was starting to see. But Kane wasn't a man who played defense. He struck back. And his strike would cut Elena where it hurt the most. A social worker arrives at the motel. She tells Elena the children may be removed due to unsafe living conditions. Elena pleads, but the caseworker coldly hands her a notice. They were taking her children. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. Unless she could prove stability. Unless she could prove safety. But how do you fight for justice when the system itself is built to break you? Elena collapses on the floor, sobbing. Isabella hugs her, whispering, "Don't give up, Mama. Papa wouldn't." In that moment, Elena almost shattered. But Isabella's words lit a flame inside her. She wiped her tears, stood tall, and whispered back, "I won't. I promise." The trio launches their boldest move yet, a live-streamed press drop. Elena speaks directly into a webcam, reading Luis's documents aloud. Comments flood in. Shares multiply. Thousands tuned in. People she had never met cheered her courage. Workers began sending their own stories, their own evidence. The widow had become a voice. And Kane? For the first time in years, he felt the ground beneath him shift. Kane pacing his penthouse, furious. He slams a glass against the wall. "You think you can embarrass me? A motel rat and a washed-up reporter? Fine. If she wants war, she'll get it." Elena believed she was winning. But victory is the most dangerous illusion. Because while she planned her next strike, Kane was setting a trap of his own. And soon, the hunter would become the hunted. Night. Rain lashes against the motel window. Elena stares at her laptop, refreshing the livestream comments. The glow on her face is hopeful, but tired. She thought the tide was turning. She thought the world was finally listening. But power like Kane's doesn't crumble overnight. And men like Victor Kane don't just fight back. They destroy. Cut to Kane's office. He sits in shadow, speaking to an unseen figure. A briefcase slides across the desk. Money. A deal is made. He had tried silence. He had tried ridicule. Now, he would try fear. And he knew exactly where to strike. Early morning. Elena wakes to pounding on the motel door. She opens it. Police officers storm in with a warrant. Jordan and Tony scramble awake. The kids scream. They tore through the room. Laptops. Hard drives. Luis's files. Confiscated. Evidence. Gone. Elena shouted, pleaded, but the officers ignored her. She caught one glance at the warrant. Fraud, conspiracy, cybercrimes. Kane had turned the law into his weapon. Motel courtyard. Reporters gather. Cameras flash as Elena is escorted outside in handcuffs. Her children cry out, reaching for her. A neighbor whispers, so she was lying all along. In a single morning, Elena went from whistleblower to criminal in the eyes of the world, exactly as Kane had planned. Jail cell. Elena sits on a metal bench, head in her hands. The fluorescent light hums above. Hours pass. She whispers to herself, "I can't break. I won't break." Fear clawed at her. What if Kane had won? What if Luis's fight ended here, in a cold cell, with her children taken away? Jordan visits, speaking through the glass. "Elena, listen to me. They don't have enough to hold you. Kane's bluffing with paperwork. But you have to stay strong. Don't sign anything. Don't let them scare you." Elena, weak, cracking. "Jordan, my kids. They'll take them. I can't lose them too. Jordan, firm, leaning in. Then fight. For them. For Luis. You're closer than you think, and Kane knows it. That's why he's desperate. Hours later, Elena is released, but her reputation is in ruins. News headlines brand her a fraud. Her boss from Luis's old company appears on TV, calling her unstable. Online trolls mock her. Sponsors pull from journalists covering her story. Kane hadn't just tried to silence her. He had poisoned her name. To the public, she was no longer a grieving widow seeking justice. She was a liar. A criminal. A mother unfit to raise her children. Social services arrive at the motel again. This time, they take Isabella and Mateo. Elena chases after the car, screaming, collapsing in the street as the taillights disappear into the night. And just like that, Kane ripped the last pieces of her heart away. Her children. Her reason. Gone. Days blur together. Elena sits alone in the empty motel room. Bottles collect on the table. Curtains drawn. She scrolls through hate comments until the screen blurs with tears. This was the lowest valley. The moment every hero faces, when the weight of the fight feels too great, and surrender whispers louder than hope. A knock at the door. Jordan and Tony enter. Tony drops a duffel bag on the bed. Inside, backup drives. Copies of Luis's files. A flicker of light. But darkness cannot swallow the truth forever. Luis had planned ahead. And the evidence Kane thought he'd buried, still lived. Jordan, steady, almost pleading. Elena, listen. You can't give up. Kane thinks he's won, but we're closer than ever. These files, they connect him to City Hall, to labor deaths, to everything. We still have a shot. But only if you stand up one more time. Elena, broken, whispering. My children, they'll never forgive me. Tony, gruff, heartfelt. Lady, they don't need to forgive you. They need to see you win. Show them what fighting looks like. Elena stands at the mirror again. Bruised, exhausted, hollow-eyed. She ties her hair back. Her reflection no longer looks like a victim, but a soldier preparing for war. She had lost almost everything. Her home. Her reputation. Her children. But not her purpose. And as long as she had breath, she would make Victor Kane pay. Not just for her. For every worker buried under his lies. For every family crushed by his greed. For Luis. The widow was reborn in fire. And in the ashes of her defeat, Kane's empire was about to burn. Because the final battle was coming. And only one of them would walk away. A storm brews over Manhattan. The skyline glows, but beneath it, shadows gather. Elena, Jordan, and Tony huddle in a dimly lit storage unit. Luis's files lie spread across the table. Maps. Photos. Names. A strategy laid bare. This was it. No more running. No more hiding. Every road of her grief. Every scar of her fight. It all led here, to the heart of Kane's empire. Cut to Kane's penthouse. He laughs with investors, a glass of whiskey in hand. His walls lined with screens broadcasting news calling Elena a fraud. He's untouchable, smug, drunk on power. He believed she was finished. He believed his money, his friends, his lies, made him invincible. But he forgot one thing. Truth has teeth. And tonight, it was coming for him. Elena holds her children's photo. She kisses it, then slides it into her pocket. Jordan adjusts a hidden mic. Tony checks a recorder. The plan is dangerous, a sting that could either expose Kane or destroy them for good. Jordan, firm, whispering. You don't have to do this, Elena. We can leak the files, play it safe. Elena, shaking her head. No. He'll bury it. Like he buried Luis. Like he buried every other family. This time, the world will watch him hang himself with his own words. Elena, disguised as an assistant, infiltrates Kane's investor party with Jordan nearby posing as staff. Tony runs surveillance from a van outside. The tension is thick. The trap was set. All she needed was Kane's arrogance. And Kane had never known humility. Kane spots her across the room. Shock flickers in his eyes, quickly turning to mockery. He waves her over, amused. Kane, sneering. Well, well. The little widow. I thought you'd be in jail by now. Or a grave. Brave of you to show your face here. Elena, calm, controlled. You always did like an audience, Victor. I came to give you one. She gestures toward the crowd of investors, journalists, hidden cameras catching every angle. She baited the hook. And Victor Kane, blinded by ego, drowning in pride, bit down hard. Kane leans in close, smug. He whispers, unaware his mic is live. Kane, taunting. You think anyone cares? I own the city. The mayor, the courts, the cops, all mine. Luis was an accident, sure, but accidents happen when people don't listen. And you? You'll end up the same if you don't shut your mouth. Silence in the room. Gasps ripple through the crowd. The projector Tony rigged flickers on the wall, flashing Luis's files, photos of dead workers, forged contracts, bribes. The truth unspools in real time. Kane's words echo over the speakers. His mask shatters. In one moment, the empire cracked. The lies. The secrets. The blood on his hands. All of it, laid bare before the world. Chaos. Investors back away. Journalists rush forward with cameras. Police storm in with warrants, real ones this time, armed with Tony and Jordan's evidence. Kane rages, lunges at Elena, but officers pin him to the floor. Kane, screaming. This isn't over. You're nothing. Nothing. Elena, voice steady, powerful. No, Victor. I'm everything you never saw coming. Kane is dragged away in cuffs. Reporters shout questions. Elena stands in the center, trembling but unbroken. The widow is no longer a victim, she is a victor. Justice, at last. Not just for Luis. Not just for Elena. But for every silent voice Kane had buried. The empire that crushed her lay in ashes. And from those ashes, she rose. Weeks later, Elena walks hand in hand with Isabella and Mateo into their new home, a modest house rebuilt from Luis's old land. Neighbors cheer. The community embraces her. She is no longer alone. Her children were safe. Her family's name, restored. And Luis's legacy, not a tragedy, but a torch. A light she would carry forward, for others still trapped in the dark. Elena volunteers at a workers' rights center. She shares her story with other widows, other families fighting their own battles. Cameras follow, but she speaks not for fame, but for change. Elena, soft, resolved. If you're listening, if you think you're too small, too weak, too broken, remember me. They called me nothing, but I became the storm. Final shot. Elena at Luis's grave, flowers in hand. The wind stirs. She smiles faintly, whispers, "We won, mi amor." She walks away, children by her side. The grave catches the last rays of the setting sun. And so the widow's war became a widow's triumph. Because the truth can be buried, but never killed. And when justice rises, it rises like fire. Beautiful souls, thank you for walking this road with Elena. If this journey moved you, if it stirred anger or hope or tears, let us know in the comments. What moment struck you the hardest? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Because stories like this remind us all, the underdog can win. And when they do, the world changes.